This time we're going to be taking on the Grave Robber run. For this run, well, we have to become a Grave Robber. So just like all of our Fallout New Vegas runs, we gotta start it out strong by waking up after getting shot in the head by Benny. Then we have to create our own character, which we might as well make the most Grave Robber looking character that we can, and I think that this guy right here should do just fine. And then up next is our special stats. Well, what would be the most Grave Robber type thing? I decided to go with this for Grave Robber, figuring that luck would kind of makes sense for a Grave Robber to have, although intelligence and charisma are extremely low. Also something that I assume a Grave Robber would have, so I think we're off to a good start there. And then finally we have to talk to Doc about getting some new traits. The traits I decided to take for this run were Hoarder, because if we're a Grave Robber we gotta be hoarding stuff, right? That turned out to be kind of a mistake though, because I kind of overestimated how much stuff we were going to get from graves in the first place. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we go over how many graves there are in New Vegas. And then I decided to go with Skilled. This was just simply to get more points overall. I did end up playing this on the very hard hardcore difficulty, which I wouldn't really advise for doing a challenge like this. Again, the weapons and the gear that we got from this were very iffy at best. So with that out of the way, we did our usual thing of robbing everything in Doc's house right away. This was for two purposes. One, because it's tradition and you have to do it anytime that you start New Vegas. That's just how it goes. And two, so that we can actually have some extra money at the start, because I didn't know how many bullets we were actually going to find in graves. And I decided to not just use what I could find in graves, at least once it came to bullets. And once it came to repairing my gear that I would find. Also, I didn't really want to run around constantly looking for weapon repair kits to fix up my gear. I did use some of them, though, throughout the game, and managed to keep on to quite a few of them, which did help at the end. So the very first question I should answer is, what kind of weapons can you even get from graves in Fallout New Vegas anyway? Well, there is a couple of weapons that you can get in graves from Fallout New Vegas. This totally depends on what type of grave it is, whether it's considered a unique grave or whether it's considered a generic grave. If it's a generic grave, then that covers the majority of the graves. And the weapons that you can get from the generic graves are the Silent 22, the Varmint Rifle, 9mm pistol, 357 revolver, and the single-shot shotgun. And that's it. Those are the only 5 weapons that you can actually get from generic graves. All very early game weapons, which I'm assuming they did that because you are at Good Springs, and a lot of the time you could just run to the graves without too much trouble, without fighting a whole lot of things, and maybe get some other early game weapons. I at least assume that's why they did this. There is also some unique graves, where I think there is 3 of them. One of these is at the Yangsty Memorial Site, one of these is at Wolfhorn Ranch, and one of these is Chance's grave. So that also brings up the question of, how many graves are there in Fallout New Vegas? Well, I'll tell you. There is 5 graves inside of Good Springs. You can loot these right away without needing to leave Good Springs. There is 3 graves outside of Nellis. There's 2 graves at the Whittaker Farmstead, 2 graves behind the Follower Safe House, 2 graves at Matthews Animal Husbandry Farm, 1 grave at the Northern Pass, 1 grave at Scorpion Gulch, 2 graves at the Canyon Rack, 1 grave at the Wolfhorn Ranch, 2 graves at Novak, 3 graves at the Yangsty Memorial, 1 grave above the Tribal Village, being Chance's grave, 2 graves behind the Blue Paradise Vacation Rentals, 1 grave outside Bonnie Springs, I believe 8 graves at Bitter Springs, at least it seemed like 8, about 8 to 10 of them. I'm not entirely sure exactly how many is actually there. 3 graves at the Mesquite Mountains campsite, and 1 grave next to the Silver Peak Mines. There is also an additional 5 graves in one of the DLCs, and there is only one DLC that has graves, with that being Old World Blues. This is at the Cuckoo's Nest, which I didn't actually go to any of the DLCs for this run because I figured it was already rough enough just going through the regular game. With that out of the way, and with our build setup, we decided to run directly to the Good Springs water source to pick up the shovel. We need the shovel to open up graves, and then I took off running right back to the Good Springs Cemetery. I didn't get... Is that every grave? I think that's every grave. I didn't get a gun. I didn't get a weapon at all. I just got bullets. And with our first stop, we found absolutely nothing, which prompted me to have to leave Good Springs because we needed to look for some sort of weapon in order to get this playthrough going. So I ran over to the little Yangsty Memorial Site, and while I was there, I also reset my character doing the skilled glitch to where you can get skilled for a second time and just get more skill points overall, which is very useful, especially for a build like this. This one's empty. Fantastic. This one, it's got an incinerator. Okay, I got a weapon. That's my only weapon. I got clothes from the same thing. Heck yeah, I got Brahmin skin outfit. I got +1 agility, +1 endurance. We're looking a little bit basic here, but that's okay. At the Yangsty Memorial, we did manage to find our very first weapon. This was an incinerator, and we found a little bit of ammo for it, but this still wasn't really going to help us. After that, we decided to go to all of the rest of the graves around the map, and this became my first streaming session of just going from gravesite to gravesite. Once I had completed my journey just looking for all the graves and sorting out which weapons we had at least a small arsenal of weapons. We managed to find 3 9mm handguns throughout our grave searches, 1 Silent 22, 1 varmint rifle, 1 single-shot shotgun, 1 357 Magnum, 2 cowboy repeaters, 1 laser RCW, 1 incinerator, not even a heavy incinerator, just a regular incinerator, and then Chance's knife, which was going to be kind of our main go-to weapon throughout this playthrough, which I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't, but Chance's knife is a very, very strong weapon, and it was the most guaranteed weapon. I wasn't really expecting us to get some of the other weapons, though. I did manage to get a 357 from this and upgrade it right away. I also managed to get a cowboy repeater and upgrade it with all of its mods, too, which is very rare for me, because it almost always seems I can never find one part of the cowboy repeater in any of my playthroughs, whether it be the tube, the action, or the stock. For some reason, vendors just don't have it for me whenever I start this game. So it was actually really cool to find a fully functional cowboy repeater, which did actually turn out to be probably one of my best weapons throughout this playthrough. Laser RCW was also pretty nice, and the 9mm pistol I could at least use in the early game because basically everybody has them, so I could just keep repairing mine. I also then decided to go back to Good Springs and do Ringo's quest, but it turns out that Ringo gets very angry if you're wearing the Great Khan's outfit for some reason and goes psycho and tries to kill you. I'm gonna hide right here by this truck and then we're gonna calm down and we're gonna talk, okay? Now he's calm.
That's close enough. Who are you, and what do you want with me?
I'm not your enemy.
Sorry about the gun. You just caught me off guard, that's all. You got off to a bad start.
You say so?
What say we start over with...
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me try to help you. After this, we were able to slaughter Joe Cop's entire gang and take all the weapons that they had as well as the ammo that they had to fix up my weapons. And rather than running down usually the south way and doing some quests in New Vegas, I just decided to run right to the strip. So we headed right there, and this was where my luck really kicked in. I needed to have a lot more money to first off get into the strip in the first place, and secondly to get a bunch of implants because we were kind of lacking in terms of everything. I should also mention the armors that we got, where we ended up getting 3 outfits, I believe, that were all regular farming outfits that gave us no protection, so that wasn't really going to help us, and the Great Khan's armor, which is a faction armor, and some enemies will try to attack you on sight with it, so I could only use it in certain areas, which was rough to say the least. The main thing I wanted to get from the implants was the durability implant so that I could have some subdermal armor and basically just get a free version of toughness. This required money, and I wanted a lot of money, so first stop, Atomic Wrangler Casino, gamble until I get all my money there. Luckily with this, we have 9 luck, so I was able to get this no problem. Then hop out, go to the clinic, get my luck implant so we could have 10. You don't actually need this much, it's really easy to win blackjack then, and that's basically what I did. And then we went to every other casino on the strip, cleared them out of money, then proceeded to get all the rest of our implants that we needed. We were also here to take care of Benny, which Chance's knife certainly came in handy for that, because even though I couldn't take a whole bunch of damage, at this point in time I could actually deal a decent amount of damage. This kind of helped with some of the perks that we took. Basically I just specialized in a melee build, going with Cowboy, Grunt, and Super Slam, just to get the most out of Chance's knife and just shank as many people as possible, because that was clearly working the best, and it also synergized pretty well with our Cowboy repeater here, so that we could deal a little bit more damage to enemies. Out of all the factions, I decided to join Mr. House. This was for 2 reasons. One is because I imagined Mr. House would rob people's graves and not feel anything about it, so I kind of naturally gravitated towards him, and 2, because I haven't done Mr. House's playthrough in forever, so it was a little bit interesting because I completely forgot which factions we needed to talk to. And speaking of factions, the very first one we had to go to talk to is the Boomers, which you could just kill all the Boomers and solve the problem, but I kind of like having the Boomers on my side, so usual Boomer stuff. Kill all the ants, fix up the solar panels, resurrect the ship, get them on our side, back to Mr. House. After that, we had to go deal with Gamora. That was pretty easy. Then on to the Brotherhood, which that can take a really long time, especially for a character like mine who doesn't have any sort of speech skill or barter skill. At least we had high enough speech skill, though. That made it really easy. Although I did find out at this point that even with our armor on, even with the max amount of damage resist I could muster, getting hit with the Gauss rifle still did not feel good from the Brotherhood. And basically, I could tank through 1 hit, but just barely. So we had to get out of there really fast, and then we had to go siege the dam. By the time I actually got to the dam, I think I was level 13 or 14 or so not very high level, didn't have a whole lot of perks. didn't have any armor left anymore because all of my armor had broken from, well, getting shot by Gauss rifles, and it was time to siege the dam, which luckily, Mr. House at least gave me one of the Securitrons to escort me across the bridge, which did come in handy, and Chance's knife also came in pretty handy for the endgame stuff, because even though it didn't necessarily do as much damage as some of the other enemies' weapons, especially once they started having super sledges and 50 cals, it still was putting up a pretty good fight against all of them. I did die several times throughout this playthrough, actually more than several times, many times, and the dam definitely took its toll on me. And then we only had one hurdle left to face, which was the Legate, which this one proved to be extremely difficult for me, because I was under the assumption that I could probably just stab him, knock him down, and then just keep stabbing him until he was dead. Him and his guards had a difference of opinion there, and it did not go well for me. I was actually somewhat hard stuck on the Legate for about 3 hours in total. The last hour or so of the first stream where I got there, I just could not fight him, so I decided, let's go back to the drawing board, maybe get some more ammunition, maybe get some more stuff, grab all of our gear since I had been storing some of it in the dumpster at Good Springs since I didn't really have laser RCW rounds. Same thing went with incinerator shots. I still forgot to bring the incinerator anyway. I don't know exactly where I left it. Didn't matter though, because we were ready to go siege the dam again, which went a little bit better. It still wasn't going great. Those 50 cals, hunting rifles, shotguns, super sledges definitely hurt, and I couldn't take very many hits from them. Again, the Securitrons kind of carried me up until the Legate's fight, and then I found out some interesting things about the Legate fight. I've actually never really stayed and fought the Legate for very long. Usually I've killed him very quickly because it's been at the very end game, and I actually have good weapons. Turns out he can just keep spawning enemies, like non-stop. Just keep spawning guys that keep showing up. And I tried this little corner sitting strat on top of a tent. Kind of worked, sort of. I managed to do at least some damage to him, and the armor-piercing rounds I got from my varmint rifle were at least hurting him. The cowboy repeater was hurting some of the other enemies. Unfortunately, though, if any enemies seen me and they had something like a marksman carbine, they absolutely shredded me, which was not really that good. If the Legate found me, I was usually 1 or 2 shot, depending on if he knocked me down or not. And this entire last part of the playthrough just turned into just a mess of what was going on. I'm inside the wall. I think I might have become invulnerable. Oh wait, no, he's hitting me. He's definitely hitting me. Dang it. That was actually going better, although it's super janky. Luckily, through the power of jank in Fallout New Vegas, we did manage to get him stuck in the gate at the very least. And this worked in kind of one of 2 ways. Initially, I tried using the VATS to stab him, which teleported me inside of the gate. That was a very big mistake, because it turns out when I'm teleported in, he can still hit me inside the gate. So then we became much more evenly matched, which was never a good thing for me, because I wasn't going to win in an evenly matched fight. And then the other way was just simply stand outside and keep shanking him in the knee until he eventually died, which resulted in this? Whatever this is? I don't know. The Legate is looking down on him.
It's been a long time since I've seen the kind of work you've laid down today. A damn long time.
I'll take that as a compliment, thank you. After this though, luckily the NCR were complete pushovers and Mr. House's bots managed to kill him, and that was the very end of my grave robber run. This was kind of a speed run that I did from this playthrough, but I kind of wanted to try it in that sense, and I found that it was actually quite fun. There was some other ideas for challenges that were sent to me during this live stream, or during these live streams. One of them sounds pretty interesting, which I might be trying sometime soon if you guys enjoy this type of video, and that is looting all of the dead bodies I can find around the Mojave. They actually have to be dead, not ones that I kill or not ones that somebody else kills, but just bodies that are always laying around in the Mojave, and seeing what kind of weapons we can get off of them. I'm not entirely sure where there's always dead bodies, so this might be interesting to see what kind of weapons and armor we can find. I know at the very least we can get some blight weapons and armor. Tell me what your guys' thoughts are on that. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys are having fun out there in the wasteland, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye!